listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
What's going on? Hope you're all doing great, and thanks for checking out my show Straight to Video. Now, today's episode is a real fun chat, and one that proves once again in this world that you never know where you're going to meet cool people. The story behind me hooking up with today's guest is kind of fun, so I want to share it with you. Now, as a lot of you know, I got the chance to visit Nashville back in March as part of the Rock and Pod weekend, and so when I was looking for places to stay, I happened upon an Airbnb right at the end of Music Row in town. Turns out it was owned by singer-songwriter John Allan Miller, who is on today's podcast. John is full of positivity, has some great songs, and also has this really cool new lifestyle brand that combines both his music and also just a great outlook in what he calls EDBH, Eat, Drink, Be Happy. He landed in Nashville almost a decade ago from his hometown in Tampa, Florida, so I thought it would all make for a great chat here on this podcast, and I'm super happy to share it all with you. This episode of the show is proudly presented to you in association with Affinity Photo. It's an incredible piece of photo editing software which I've been using for graphic design the past couple of years. You can see how it's used in the podcast's episode artwork you see each week, and it's extremely affordable compared to all the other programs on the market. So if you can, please check them out at affinity.serif.com. Alright, I urge you all to check out John's EDBH, Eat, Drink, Be Happy brand over at edbh.co. And also have a listen to all his cool tunes. My personal favourite is Bad Day to Be a Beer, but he also has a brand new song, Pool All Summer, which is out at the end of the month, so keep tabs on the EDBH website where you'll find all the social media and music links. Right now though, please enjoy my straight to video chat with John Allan Miller.
Hey, Rob.
How's it going, mate?
It's going great, man. It's good to see you.
You too. Looks nice there.
Oh, dude, it's so nice here right now. It's like maybe 60 degrees out, and this is our 2 weeks of real spring, man. Real spring, you know. It's pretty awesome. How are you there, man? What's going on over on the other side of the pond?
Weeks are just flying by. It's crazy. I can't keep up.
I'm with you, man. I mean, you got to get stuff done as much as you can, but you can't beat yourself up. Man, I've been trying. I can't keep up with the days, and my actual timeline is not jiving with my plan.
But it's all productive stuff you're doing though, right?
For sure. You know, it's good learning time, man. You know, I think if you're just like super comfortable and just everything's just easy and you're just going through the motions every day, you probably need to challenge yourself a little more, you know?
Right. Yeah, definitely, mate. I'm stoked to have you on here, mate. It's really, really cool.
Dude, it's great to stay connected with you, man. It was awesome having you. And man, I look forward to keeping in touch, man. This is great. Oh, dude, I just got back from, I had a show in Denver this weekend.
Yeah, you mentioned that. That's crazy. How did that come about? Because that's not literally 10 minutes away. That's a fair track.
No, yeah. So I play a lot of these shows. It's the weirdest thing that's happened kind of accidentally. The people that love like tropical vibe music.
Did you call it trop rock, did I see?
Yeah, see, that's what they call it. I never say that I'm a trop rock artist. That's what they call it. They call me a trop rock artist. It's like an umbrella that could include everyone from UB40 to Jack Johnson to Jimmy Buffett to Kenny Chesney. So it's just like anybody that has any, you could be hanging out at the beach tendencies. So it's this scene where it's all these house concerts.
They're the best ones. They're fantastic for vibes.
Oh, they're so cool. I played the Soggy Dog Bar and Grill. It's just this house, but it was in the middle of the country in Colorado, like 15 minutes out of downtown Denver. And the dude, literally, he's an amazing carpenter and like handyman, and he can build things. You won't believe this backyard. His bar was just unreal.
Did you just go out there on your own, or was there a bunch of you playing?
It was just me. It was fun. I mean, played a full backyard and sunset in Denver. Like, it was amazing in the mountains. Oh, and dude, the next day he took me around. We bounced around like a couple hours, mountain bar hopping. He took me to the Stanley, dude. I had a beer at the Stanley Hotel where like The Shining was shot and Dumb and Dumber. You know, when he goes up into the article on the wall and he sees that the man walks on the moon.
Was you a fan of that film growing up?
Yeah. When that movie came out, oh God, everybody was just died laughing at it, man. I mean,
I think that was one of the first films where I laughed out loud as an adult in the cinema.
yes. And not just one part. There was just like so many. And it's a very easily quotable movie, you know? So that was cool. It was a fun trip. You meet all these folks. What's wild is they travel. You would think you're playing the show to people that live in the neighborhood. They drive in from different states to go to the show. It's this house concert community, and they look and see what's going on at the Soggy Dog or what's going on at Buddy's backyard. They RV it. So it's been a fun little accident to stumble into this world, but I've been gone, a lot, just playing these weekend gigs, and a lot better than dealing with some. Love them. There's some wonderful ones out there, but I'll take my chances with cool fan that is like, hey, what'll it take to get you here? As opposed to like, okay, well, we had 250 people come in the door. You got your fee for this. You got your fee for that. Okay, you guys drank a few. All right, here's a couple $100. You're like, what?
What a community you can build. You like interacting one-on-one with the fan base there. I know how important those shows can be.
Totally.
If it's cool with you, I want to dive back to Florida. I believe you grew up in Tampa.
Yeah, man, I did. I love Tampa, man. It was a cool place to grow up. I grew up in I'd say like kind of a pretty big town, but a pretty small community. It was called South Tampa. The kind of place where, there's like one main high school in South Tampa, and that's where I went to school. But like my parents went there, my grandparents went there. And it's kind of like that, with like your friends and whatnot. You look around at your friend group and it's like the same thing, so it's everybody's kind of tight-knit community. And I went home right now, it'd still just be like, hey. It's like that. And I miss that, in a way, but at the same time, it's kind of neat to do your own adventure. But yeah, growing up was cool. I grew up loving music, born in 81. So I'm 41. So like, at a young age, like 5, 6, 7, I was getting those first tapes and CDs as they came along and just listening to tunes and movies. And I love sports, man. I played basketball, baseball, and a little bit of racquetball. I still love taking in sports and following my teams and whatnot. Learning my soccer from Ted Lasso. I think I told you that.
Well, old Ryan Reynolds is doing good. His team won.
I saw that. Again, learning my soccer through stuff like that. That's like a crash course from Ted Lasso and Ryan Reynolds. What could you ask for?
Florida is somewhere where we Brits go on vacation, but where do Floridians go on holiday? There's not much reason to leave the state if you're after sun and the beach, but where was your favorite place growing up?
Okay, so here's the thing. It's a great question. So, folks in Florida, when you're in Tampa, for instance, it's it's not vacation to go to Clearwater or to St. Pete Beach. That's right there. It's like, it's an easy 30-minute drive.
That's a weekend trip.
Yeah, you could do that anytime, and folks do it all the time. But there's little getaways, like Boca Grande is a really cool island. We used to go, Rob, my family went on like 2 vacations. We weren't that family. That was not us. But we went maybe a couple times to like a place called Little Gasparilla Island. And it's right next to Boca Grande. The fishing's great. And there's like a bunch of homes on stilts and maybe a couple little hotels, but there's lots of little beach style homes. And you just drive golf carts around the island. So that's kind of where you go when you're doing the Florida thing as a family. You go to those types of spots. And Amelia Island's another one that's a really cool one.
Where are these kind of geographically on the Florida coast? Because obviously you got Key West right at the bottom.
Right. So Tampa, for instance, is right in the kind of the middle of the state. And so like Little Gasparilla and Boca Grande are just a little south, a little bit more by Sarasota. And then you got the Keys, you got the Keys, but folks would go to like some of the other Keys, not like Key West, like Marathon or something like that. And just fish. Have you been to Key West?
Yeah, I've been a couple of times. I loved it. Yeah, it was great.
It's fun, right?
The first time we went, we were supposed to have a vacation in Miami, and it turned out we were the last flight out of the UK before they shut it down because a hurricane was coming. So we got into Miami and they says all South Beach has been closed. So it was like, well, what we're going to do? That's where our hotel is. So you'll have to go to a shelter or something. I'm like, what? We ain't doing that. So we found a hotel for the night. The next day we just got our rental car and just drove all the way down to Key West and just stayed there for a few days. So it was great.
What a drive though, right? Isn't that a cool drive?
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
Did you by any chance stop at, there's a couple of these places, but there's a place called Robbie's.
Me and my wife did it a few years ago in 2018, where you feed the fish.
Yeah, the tarpon. This is the tarpon.
Fantastic. That's one of the best things I've ever done.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I go like this, Rob. Thing comes up. I drop it in its mouth. My buddy Steven Anderson is bold. He likes to just let it, like he literally, and he stays there. You know, they don't bite you, but their teeth kind of scrape you. And he's, bleeding. Like, all right, buddy. Way to go.
Yeah, that's one of the coolest things I've done because it was just like a couple of bucks to get the fish and it's so much fun. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I love it, man. That's a great spot, man. I get to go at least twice a year. I've been playing, there's a Key West Songwriters Festival, which is basically just Nashville in Key West. And then there's one in November with that tropical music scene. It's called Meeting of the Minds. Sounds like a math camp or something, but it's a tropical music thing with all the Jimmy Buffett Parrot Head fan folk. But it's cool you've been down there, man, because it's a good time, man, all day, every day.
This is maybe an odd question, but do you have what I call a go-to summer memory growing up when like music really hit home and became a soundtrack, or maybe when there was a huge summer blockbuster film or anything like that? Mine's like around like 1991 kind of time, but have you got one that kind of jumps to mind?
Sure. Yeah. It's funny, man. I have a couple that kind of blend together, but I'll share this. So I was in a band in high school.
What was the band called?
Oh, God.
Come on.
As I'm saying, I was in a band in high school. I'm going, Rob's going to say, what were you called? So here's what we were called. Okay. It was an acronym of our last names. And what gets me, okay, for the record, I'm not anti-fish, as in PHISH fish. I'm not anti-fish. They're fine. But we didn't realize, I knew who they were, but we didn't realize that the last names were Putney, Holcomb, Olson, Angel, Miller. So we were foam. Foam with a PH.
That's quite beachy, though.
Yeah, but we were playing like Metallica vibe. Like we had a song called Hourglass in the Sky about death, and it made no sense. It was a great experience. And we finished like second in a Hillsborough County Battle of the Bands at the stadium, which was cool. With that, we actually won studio time, which was like 25 hours, which sounded like more than enough to record a record, for a few kids. But it was quite the disaster. It was a bit of a mess. But one night, it was like a late night, and it was me and one of the bandmates who's still a great friend of mine, Derek, and then another bandmate, I think was there, Bill. And we were going around town late night on like a Friday or Saturday night with our press kits. This is 1998. So we're going around with our press kit that I guess had our picture. It was like us at a dead end by the water with a sign that said "Don't park" or something like that, or "No parking."
Super edgy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then like a car parked right in front of that, and us kind of leaning up against the Jeep or whatever it was. And what happened was we go up to this place. It was called Club Moore, and it was in Clearwater. It's no longer there. It was such a great club, Rob. It was just one of those like small clubs, but big enough. Just a nice size stage. Place would get packed. And well, that was our first time there. And, we were 17 years old or so. And so we went up to the door and there was nobody there. I think what happened was it was like the end of the night. So they weren't expecting any more folks walking in or whatever. And we just walked right on in. We walked into this show and man, it was a band called Big Sky. They were out of Gainesville, Florida. And we were in there. It's just a packed crowd. We go up to the bar, grab a beer. Next thing you know, we're on the floor. And we caught maybe like the last 4 or 5 songs of their night. And this place was packed. They were going nuts over this band. Like these people knew this band. They were like a 7 or 8 piece band, great sax player, great lead guitarist, guy on keys. It was like a blues, rock and roll, feel good vibe with like pop-ish tendencies, and we were blown away. We were just blown away. And what's funny is, like I said, we just caught a few songs. We were like, this band is nuts. They're so good. And so the next time they came to Club Moore, man, we brought everyone and we got in. And so what's wild is we ended up not only getting in, but they like kind of noticed a different crowd. I think they were kind of like, there's something different about these 40 people right here. Maybe they're 17, like, man, that's what it is. I had a fake ID that I used that was so bad, Rob.
Was it super bad?
It was so bad that it worked. His name was John something. If I called my buddy, he would be like, know it right away. It was New York ID. So I think, back then, they probably don't see as many of those.
How old was you on it?
Oh, he was older. That's another thing. He was like 24, 25. So that helped. And he kind of looked like Jason Biggs from American Pie. But we had a crew. We ended up hanging out with Big Sky, becoming friends. I still have a nice, wonderful relationship with the bass player. He's in a music career, writes music for TV shows and film, and we've done a lot of stuff together over the years.
That's the magic of music, mate, right there.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, we're great friends. He's in Orlando. He was in Vegas in their music scene for a while.
What would have happened if there was a doorman on the door at that club that night and you didn't get in?
I know. Right. It would have never happened. We'd have never had all those friends. Might not be playing music today. And it turned into a thing. And Rob, we would go see them outside of town. And I ended up going to University of Florida for school. So they were a Gainesville band and they all went to school there too. So we have that connection. And Rob, I saw them at the Super Bowl opening for Huey Lewis and the News in Jacksonville. It was amazing. So they were that close, but they ended up, Rob, they were this close. It was a different time. You had the way that they did it is, I think, the way it was done. Back then they'd go play Jacksonville, Orlando, Miami, Tampa, Tallahassee, Gainesville, pop into Atlanta, Charleston, blah, 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 and then just come back. Every 2 months, they'd be back. Every 2 or 3 months, they'd be back. You were excited to go see them. I know they had label interest. It was interesting. Right near the end, of course, right near the end, they did a album that was way different than the other ones. It sounded more like that early 2000s rock. The energetic stuff, not the grungy attempts, kind of had more of the driving rock stuff. And they got close with that. That was the closest they got because it was just really commercial. They had a song that was on the radio and it was moving and then that was pretty much it.
The old story, it gets just as things starting to happen, that's when everything implodes. I think everybody's exhausted by that point.
Yeah. And I think that last attempt was basically a commercial attempt. And I liked the record, actually. The record's pretty cool, but they were more like Blues Traveler before.
All right, okay.
And less like that last record.
Oh, wow. But that's so good that you've stayed in touch with them and forged those friendships over those years.
Yeah, man.
When did you first start playing guitar? Was there anyone in particular that inspired you?
So I started playing in high school at a party, and it's not so much the guitar, but music. Those guys that were in the band, Derek had a wonderfully crazy household. Wonderful people. Derek's dad, who passed recently, was an extremely successful heart surgeon. Mom, wonderful lady who's still with us. She starts happy hour at about 3:30 or 4 every day, Rob. And, Dr. Angel had to put his work in during the day, but he'd come and join. And I'll just say that you could kind of do your thing over there at the Angels. My buddy's name is Derek Angel.
That's not even a stage name. His name is Derek Angel.
Yeah, with two L's. Yeah. He's a lawyer in Orlando. Yeah, he could probably still play the guitar well, but I'm not kidding, Rob. They were home. We'd just have a party. And Judy would, it was the funniest thing, Rob. Judy would come out and she would go, "You guys don't look here." And we just go, "Hey, Judy." 20 minutes later, it's like she forgot that she was mad. And she'd just come out, hey, and she's like throwing back drinks with us and hanging out. And so point being, to answer your question, one night, so Derek had like really nice house. Derek had a whole band room set up next to his bedroom and had like drums and bass, guitars everywhere. One day, my buddy Bill had been learning the guitar, hopped up on the guitar. Derek, he spent all of middle school just shredding. Guy hopped up on drums, another guy hopped on bass, and I grabbed the mic and started singing. And so that's just how it started. And next thing you know, we were a band and, making music and competing in battle of bands. And I kind of my interests were never in becoming an amazing guitarist. I just never leaned that way. But I would grab the guitar and learn from just being around.
Just more about the song.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's funny you mentioned that with the guitar thing. Like with time, I've just kind of gotten better, but from like a longevity standpoint, you just keep playing the thing all the time. You're going to get better. So I feel like I'm able to do what I do really well. It's just not much, but do what I do and very comfortably now on stage. And I kind of think what I do works well with what I do live in the acoustic setting. Because I kind of do this kind of stand-up comedy / music thing that stops and starts. So it lends very well to not staying on time. But what's funny is with this new music that I've been recording, working with this wonderful producer, everybody around here calls him Messi. His name is David Mescon. He is a world-class guitarist and bass.
Makes you sick.
Oh, yeah. It's unreal. And have gotten in the habit of when I go in to record songs with them. And actually, we're recording a new one on Cinco de Mayo. It's going to be a margaritas and recording day. But I've gotten in the habit, Rob, of just when I go in, I call it, I don't want to lead the witness. So I don't want to show him how I play it. What does that matter when he's able to do what he's able to do? So what I do is I just sing him the melody that I've got in my head, that I wrote. I sing what I would be singing if I was playing the guitar, but he's not hearing any of me on the guitar. And that some of the things that he's just coming up with are grooves that I just would have never come up with, and tempos. Like it'll change the entire tempo of the song.
How did the two of you meet?
So it's cool how we met. One of my best friends here in Nashville, and I moved here really for the songwriting side of things. And I moved here to write with amazing people. And I think we might have talked about this a little bit, like everyone's great. Like here, like everyone's really talented and awesome. And like, there's not a writing appointment that I have that is not just really cool to have.
Is that quite overwhelming?
Yeah. Well, it's really cool how everybody here is just like, hey, no, we're going to get together and everybody does what they do well. But there's a handful of people out of all those people that you're literally sitting there and you're like, I cannot believe that I get to do this today with this insanely talented individual. And the one I'm talking about it specifically because this is how I met Messi is a guy named Blessing Offer. He is from Nigeria, moved here when he was a young kid. He's unreal musician. The voice is out of this world. And it's an interesting thing. I don't think of him as being a blind guy at all. He's just my friend, but he's blind. And so it's amazing to see what he does and hear what he does. I don't even mention it usually. It's just because the guy he lives his life. He's pretty self-sufficient, to say the least. We've traveled a lot and I'm the worst I gotcha guy. Like, because I just get distracted and where's my, crap, Blessing, come here. Don't get hit by a car. I'm pretty bad, but I've gotten better. But Blessing introduced me because I was explaining to Blessing what I wanted to do with this EDBH project. It stands for Eat, Drink, Be Happy. New brand that I'm building, and that has, a lot to do with music, but there's other things that are involved. But I was explaining to Blessing that I really wanted it to be something different sonically that I wouldn't have done if I just went into the studio traditional style. That's typically around here, at least. You come in with your vision and they're going to make your vision sound unreal, but it's still going to be what you told them. But that was his recommendation. He was like, you got to meet Messi. And he has a very interesting track record of working with like big names in the pop world, along with also he's here in Nashville. So he does a bunch of cool, country records as well. But I was more interested in some of his stuff on the other end of things. And I feel like we found a nice just synergy working together and just creating these songs that just fit this pretty large umbrella of things, which is kind of just like, kind of fall into this, live life to the fullest. You only got so much time on this one shot. Let's live this thing. And, some of the songs coming out here in the next few months, I'm so excited about it. It's been a lot of fun and just excited about creating with it because it's something that for the first time, but like, it feels like my most authentic me and something that I really am just excited to stand behind.
It's weird though, you're saying that it's the most authentic you at this point in your life. Is it something that's kind of been staring you in the face all this time? From where you were brought up, it's got that Florida beach vibe and all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's something that comes with getting older. Like you see things a lot clearer. It's like, this was staring me in the face all the time.
Yeah, it is. And I really, like I said, when I moved here, it was for the songwriting side of things, not so much as the artist side of things, because I'd done that some. And I felt like at my age, it wasn't the appropriate time to crank it back up again. But what's funny is I was here and I was writing all these songs. And this is a few years ago. I found these ones that I kind of felt like were the most me. It made sense for me to just go ahead with the flow of the country genre, just hop into that space. I'm here. And it's funny. It's like living in Tampa, I would have never said, hey, I'm a country artist and done that.
What brought you to Nashville, though? Was it something that triggered it to move all that way?
I had written a couple songs that I really wanted to record. And a guy in Tampa that I'd known through the music scene there, that we'd done some stuff together. He graduated from Belmont University, right across the street from my place. And he knew a guy that he connected me to. And when I was up here recording, that's when I went to some of these shows that were the songwriter shows. And I went to a show specifically at the Listening Room. And I heard my friend my now friend, Jeff Cohen, play like 5 or 6 songs because it's in a writer's round. So there's like 3 writers up on stage. That's how these shows go in Nashville, these songwriters rounds, I call them. But I hear Jeff play and he plays like a pop song I knew from when I was a kid that he'd written. He played a song I knew from a movie. He wrote a hit for the band Perry. And then like it was all hits, these songs I knew, but they were all different genres. And I'm learning about this, like right on the fly at this show, learning about this songwriting community here. And I'm thinking, okay, if this is a thing, I want to be a part of it. I want to come give this a try. And what's funny is, I was in a very normal.
Yeah, you're doing real life stuff.
Yeah, I was in Tampa. I was doing kind of entrepreneurial type things, but they were much more normal business things. And I was kind of in and out between entrepreneurial efforts and normal sales and marketing job type things. And what's funny is right after I went to Nashville and that seed was planted, and it wasn't really like you need to move to Nashville seed, but it was planted. And then what's funny is I had this opportunity to move to like the Miami area to take over this. I was basically going to run a really great territory was what it would be for the company that I was working with. And it was actually the best territory in the country for a really, really cool company that I liked a lot. When it came, it wasn't until that opportunity was right in front of me and was a real thing that it made me go, wow, what about that? I couldn't shake that. Like it then became a serious thought.
How was your headspace with that though? Was that scary, exciting? What was making you lean more to the Nashville thing?
It was exciting, but I attempted to take a smooth, smart approach and it didn't work. My buddy who actually texted me today, who ran the Tampa office, so I was working underneath him, my buddy JD, I was just like, so JD, I'm not going to take the job in Miami. And he's like, really? I was like, yeah, I'd like to just stay here for about 6 months, and then I'm going to move to Nashville, go write some songs. JD's from Georgia. He's like, oh, man, you're not going to like this, John. You can't, man. And he's like, you got your replacements already. Like, we booked his trip, and he's moving. He's moving. You're going to train him, and then, you're going to head to Miami, And I was like, well, I'll train him, I guess. So I trained him, and I was there for about 2 more weeks. Trained the guy, and a week or so later, packed up a Volkswagen Passat. Literally, like you couldn't put another thing in that Volkswagen Passat. And my dog, who's since passed, I had him forever, crammed in there with his head out the window like this, and we just headed to Nashville, man. It just happened like that. It was a gut feeling.
What did your family think about it? Was they supportive, or they're like, "What were you doing?"
They were supportive, man. They really were. They always have been. Mom and dad, 2 very different folks when it comes to their mentality. Mom's more of the, you'll get it, go knock it out. You got it. Just keep doing the thing. Good things will happen. And dad's more of like, I support you, son. God, I hope something good happens. Just his vibe, I'll tell you what, like it is an important thing. And I love them both so much. And they're both are extremely supportive. But I'll say this, a lot of it was born with the kind of maybe a positive attitude of my mother. But also, I think the sales background and the entrepreneurial background of taking a bunch of no's and talk to 100 people and you'll find your 8 to 10 that you need type of mentality really helped with the songwriting mentality. Because even now, it's it's not like it's a breeze, but those first couple years are really hard breaking in.
Yeah, so how easy was it for you to become comfortable with it? Because are you pretty good in that situation? You're a pretty outgoing, friendly guy. So did you settle pretty easily, or was there times where he's like, "Oh my God, what have I done?"
So here's the thing. Okay, it's like my playground. I love it. It's so fun, man. I'm just like, I love every second of it. And the things that are going on in my head, I would never say. There's a lot of psychology to it. I love it all. A lot of it's just hanging out and having fun with your buddies. Sometimes you're in there with folks that you don't know that well. You're just kind of covered with a lot of it. There's just so much going on. It's interesting. And you're kind of like a psychologist sometimes in a way, and around here, that's the thing. Co-writing is such a big thing here. And I always do the best I can to, especially like, when I write with young artists, I write with a lot of young artists and, and I'll say something along the lines of, hey, Rob, just so in this room, there's no bad ideas. We're both going to throw out things. Some stuff's going to be gold. Some stuff's not going to be used. But whatever you want to talk about, I'm your guy. I'm happy to do the best I can to help make a song of it. But I just want you to know there's no judgment zone. We're here to write the best song we can today. And I just love it. But to answer your question, what's weird, I think I always felt comfortable in the room. But what's weird is when you get here, the whole thing is like who you're writing with. So it's like finding people to write with and finding people that you mesh well with. And like when you first get here, it's always a big deal to certain people's minds who these people, literally who they are that you're writing with from a standpoint of clout. Like it's a very common thing in meetings and whatnot. People say, so who you writing with? That's what they say. Who you writing with these days? And you throw out the cool names, that you write with. And they're like, okay. That type of thing. Or I used to take a lot of pride during those early days in throwing out names like Blessing Offer. Them going, never heard of them. And one of them named Tiara Kennedy, I was lucky enough to have her first single that she put out there. And Blessing and her are both signed to, major record deals. And, I was throwing out their name when they were going, never heard of them. So you get to do that, but that's kind of when you move here, that's key is finding that's what I was trying to do is find those people. And yeah, man, I got in some awkward, some rooms where you're just like, well, I'm never going to do this again with this guy, and not in a terrible way, but just didn't happen, didn't vibe well. And also, I wasn't very good at first, still working on it, but at how you get in that setting. And once you do it so many times, you get better at it.
How is it for you being in Nashville? It must be cool if you've got like that entrepreneurial spirit, that creative thing. Because Nashville's somewhere where, even I got inspired by everything that was going off. So it must be cool to be like living and working there and constantly being surrounded by creative people. It must be constantly fueling your brain all the time.
It is. And it's funny you mentioned that, like tying in the entrepreneurial side of things. I had a huge mindset change a couple years ago. When I moved here, it was very much, I moved here for songwriting. And so that's what I did. And, and I hopped in, and a lot of folks will tell you that the thing you need to do is sign that publishing deal as a writer. And I won't say that that's not a good thing to do at all. I won't say it's not good because it can be a great thing. But I did it, I hopped in, signed that publishing deal, was in that publishing deal. And that whole time leading up to it, and then that whole time, the next 4 or 5 years was all just literally like, Rob, I was having fun. I was enjoying it, but I was just session after session after session, 2, 3 to 4 hour sessions a day, like one at 10 and one at 2 or 2:30. And then if somebody asked like, hey, John, you want to hop on Tuesday evening at 6 or 6:30? I'd say yes. I never really got burned out per se on that. I always felt pretty fresh, but that's not why I shifted. I just realized that there's more that I can do than just this one activity. And I started thinking that maybe I need to be more intentional with my writing sessions, less sessions, make sure that most of them have a little bit of direction as to what we're trying to do. Now, a good example of direction would be just an amazing artist to write with. I'm in. Check that off as that counts. But my buddy Mason and I, when we get together, we write stuff a lot of times like it's more directed towards stuff that could be in TVs and movies. If I write something with a rising country artist, it's going to be, what are you looking for? What do you need? Let's write that.
Is it that whole work smarter, not work harder kind of
Yeah.
thing?
What it really did was by cutting back, like these days, Rob, I've been like 3 or 4 sessions a week at the most. So like maybe one on Monday, maybe one on Wednesday, maybe one on Friday. Last week I had 2 in a day and I was like, wow, I got 2 today. It was crazy, but opened up other time to build other things. And that's kind of how I am. I love doing all sorts of different things. And the EDBH deal, which is really like a brand.
I love that whole vibe about that. Eat, drink, and be happy. You launched that in February, right?
Yes, it's brand new and taking the early lumps with it for sure. But we talked about this, Robbie. It's like you could spend a year watching how to launch a podcast until you could literally teach the video. You could teach the lesson. But if you've never done it, you don't know it. And you're going to learn more in that 1 week of launching the first episode than you did in that entire year. So yeah, it's been cool. It's been a lot of learning. And one of the hardest things, and is just pressing go and launching that thing. And one of the things that I decided to do was when I pressed go, I had stockpiled. We've got these songs ready to go. The music side of things, which is the thing that I feel comfortable with, was what I've been leaning on and going towards. But the effort was happening in trying to learn the other aspects, but it wasn't moving along. And it's like I was waiting to launch until those other things were moved along. And I think, really, I haven't really verbalized this until right now, but I think pressing go and saying, okay, we've got all these things to launch the company, this thing, all these songs that we could release every 4 to 6 weeks, which is the plan. Songs keep on coming out, and incorporate these other things together and learn as we go and start plugging away, as opposed to having everything all figured out.
How would you pitch it to the people in the UK, EDBH?
Sure. It's about celebrating living life to the fullest. When I talk about some of the things that we're going to do, from the music side of things, the first song is Fiesta Like There's No Mañana. I mean, that's obviously like just live life to the fullest, man. Go do the thing. You never know if there is a tomorrow. So take that with a grain of salt when it comes to you saw me enough days to know that I'm not like crazy guy. I'm actually kind of the opposite. I mean, I do enjoy a cold beer more than anything in the world, but I also these days do enjoy a cold beer. It doesn't have to be 15 of them, but talk to me 15 years ago, that was a different guy. And the second song that came out is Too Many Beaches, Not Enough Time. It's funny, at the time that we wrote that song, I literally had not been to any of those beaches. And so the whole song's just about man, look, it's crazy if you think about it. This place that is maybe your happy place, your most fun place that you love so much. You haven't been to any of the cool, all these beaches that are just epic that you should go see. And you're like, man, I've just been to the ones in Florida, or whatever, that kind of thing. And so it's just a fun song where we kind of just list all these beaches. And I think the song starts, the beach is my happy place. It's my paradise. That's why it kills me to know there's so much sand I'll never try. Crazy if you think about it. And actually, have you dabbled with ChatGPT at all?
A little bit. I need to go all in.
I asked it, ChatGPT, is it possible that there's too many beaches and not enough time? In 10 seconds, it had a thing that was amazingly well written. I mean, it was and it speaks like that. It's there are, with 370,000 beaches in the world, there's blah, 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 in this amount of days. It calculated everything. It was amazing. So I asked a follow-up question. I was like, so are you telling me that one person couldn't visit all the beaches in a lifetime? It said, kind of regurgitated those numbers, but then was more specific and said, even if you had unlimited funds, unlimited resources, and unlimited time, it'd be very unlikely that one person could pull this off. And I was like, good God, man. It was just ridiculous.
What are you thinking about when you write these songs? Are you thinking back to Florida growing up?
Yeah, most of the time it just comes natural because you just spent so much time in that scene. And I mean, Rob, I think of ridiculous spring break trips with the buddies. Oh, yeah. Let me tell you what was crazy. 2000, 2001, I went on a spring break trip. My buddy Bill, who was in the band, he went to a small college in St. Pete called Eckerd College. And he made all his buddies that freshman year. And I visited a couple of times. So I was buds with them. And I went on their spring break trip to Panama City Beach. That was in the peak of spring break, MTV spring break, when they did their whole, they brought their whole operation there. Rob, I mean, Yo MTV Raps was there and, all that stuff. It was mayhem. I mean, we were 18 years old.
See, this is the answer to that question I said earlier. What's your go-to summer? I think this is the one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is the summer stuff. This is how it was, Rob. You would literally all day, all night, you're just binge drinking from the second you wake up at 9 a.m. But what was crazy is there were all these little the kind of motel type setup with the place is just 2 stories. It's like a U, and people it was they just left their door open and you just hang. People from all over the country, Rob, and it was just absolutely insane.
How long was that whole trip?
It was a week, a whole week there. School ended, you got everybody together, you went there. And it was good 5 or 6 days plus the whole time basically that you're off of school.
How many songs have come from that trip?
Probably subconsciously a good amount, man. It's just I remember, this is a funny one, man. Oh my God, I can't be able to tell the story. But there was this one night near the end of the trip, been another full day of just hanging out in the sun, drinking beer and God knows what else drinking, probably Captain Morgan and stuff like that. And I'm still kicking somehow. We got a group of there's 5 or 6 of us, and they are all just on the couches and the beds, just out cold. And it's 10 o'clock at night. So, at that age, it's time to go out. And I'm like, come on, guys, last night, let's go. And one of the buddies was a dude named Steve Kang. And I'll just say, of the group, Steve wouldn't be the ideal wingman. Steve Kang. Steve Kang was a wonderful dude, cool as could be. If you're listening, Steve, if you wanted to go be my wingman right now, you'd be my number one choice. But back then, maybe not. But Steve was like, I'll go. It was like Jerry Maguire when he goes, Dorothy, yes, coming with me. Let's go. Yeah. It's like that scene. Steve and I are in the middle of Club Lavelo. It's still there, but I'm sure it's not what it was back in the day. People everywhere, music, just pumping. And I am struggling with Steve as my wingman. We try, like, it's my buddy Steve. Bye. People disappear, just gone. Like, oh man, I'm like, struggling. I was just having a hard time meeting folks. And I swear, Rob, out of nowhere, there's like angels were all of a sudden right in front of us. And I'll be damned if they didn't say, Steve. And I'm like, bye, Steve? Sure enough, girls he knew from high school. And they jumped up hugging Steve. And the rest was history. We had a fun night. So,
going out in style.
Yeah.
Spring break ended well.
With Steve. Yeah, exactly. It was fun. We got back the next morning and, we're just like, you guys missed out, Steve.
Steve and his old high school buddies.
That's right.
Up.
Good time. Just times like that and spring break trips, summer trips. I'll share this. This is cool. There's a song that I'm putting out. We recorded it. It'll probably come out late summer. Backtrack. About 20 years ago, me and my buddy Derek, mentioned to play the guitar, lawyer in Orlando. We went on a trip to the Bahamas and we had this conversation with this guy who is the bartender there at the resort we were staying. He told us, he's like, yeah, man, when I get stressed from the wife, I just climb up to the top of the coconut tree and I crack open the coconut and I sip on the coconut and she cannot bother me up there. She cannot bother me none up there. And we're like, yeah. And then he's like, and then if I'm still stressing after the coconut, I crack open another coconut. Okay, yes. Keep it going. I get it. Yes. Keep relaxing. He just told the story. He was just very matter of fact about it. He's just telling us, yeah, man, when the old boss stresses me out, I just climb up to the top of the coconut tree. And for some reason, fast forward, it was like 2020 and I was hanging out at home. That whole conversation just popped in my head. And I literally wrote this song called Up in the Coconut Tree. And it's literally like what he said. First verse, second verse, chorus.
After all those years, it came back in. And
yeah, just for some reason that day popped in my head. And then this is crazy. I'm in Nashville one day. There's a bartender. He had a, Bahamian sounding accent. I get to talking to him. I tell him about that story. He's like, what resorts was you at, man? I'm like, Crystal Palace. He's like, my father worked at the Crystal Palace. And I was like, no way. That's interesting. And I'm looking at the guy and he's like 22, 23 years old. He's like, my uncle worked there too. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And I have the guy's picture in my phone. I have a picture of him. So I'm scrolling through it. I hand him the phone, takes it, he goes, and I'm like, is it your dad? He goes, no, but this is my dad's best friend, Hanu. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So what I'm going to do, Rob, and this is, what? You asked me, like, what is Eat, Drink, Be Happy? What is EDBH? This is the kind of stuff I'm excited about doing. I'm going to go out. I'm going to book a trip. I have this guy's info, and Hanu apparently is alive and well and doing great in the Bahamas over there in Nassau. So I'm going to go coordinate meeting up with him, catching up, but, let him hear the song and just let him know that, a little conversation he had with me 20 years ago.
Can you both still get up the coconut tree and sit up there and do the video?
Yeah, we need to go up and hang in the coconut tree. Yeah, I hope he's finding himself in a place of less stress, but I hope even, stress or no stress. I hope he goes and sits up in the coconut tree every now and then. But yeah, so that's what it's all about, is sharing stories about people. Just everybody's different, right? Like whatever makes me happy might be different than what makes somebody else happy. Or like amounts. I might like to work out, but I might not like to work out that much. Everybody's levels are different. There's a guy here, I may have told you about this. Did you see, Rob, the spot where the roundabout is, where the naked people are, right on Music Row? Yeah, for you guys listening out there. On Music Row, it kind of dead ends into this roundabout. And right in the middle of the roundabout is these statues of naked folks. And this guy, his name's Sean, now I know him, is kind of right there on the corner. And he sells what's called the Contributor, which is a local newspaper that is sold by people in situations of homelessness. And a lot of times, those folks, they try to look like they might die right there on the curb when they're, asking for money. And maybe they are in that spot right there. But, sometimes you go, a guy like they might be putting it on a little bit, for dramatic purposes. Well, selling that same magazine is this guy, Sean Avery. And what he does is he stands in this spot where there's just traffic coming by all the time. And every guy that goes by, whether he's on a bike or running or on a car, Sean goes, King, King, hey, King. Woman or a young lady goes by, he goes, Queen, hey, Queen, hey, Queen. and just does it with such joy and really acknowledges the person and doesn't push anything on you at all. It's like he's not really trying to sell this thing. I mean, he'll sell it to you if you come up and get it from him. But for a while, I'm thinking, because you don't hear it to everyone else. You just hear it when you're passing by. I'm on Music Row. I think he thinks I'm somebody cool. I really do.
Making you feel special, man.
Yeah, for sure. And then within a little bit of time, I realized, I was like, that's really cool that he just greets everyone in a very sweet, creative way. And I've become friends with him. We're buddies. He started a little clothing line called Kings and Queens, and he's working on it. I actually want to help him out a little bit with it if I can. But I want to have somebody like Sean on.
Spread that love, man.
Yeah, that's what I want to do, is that kind of stuff. I mean, here's a guy that's like having a super positive day doing what he's doing in that spot. And we got folks, I definitely shouldn't be bitching about going to write a song or something like that.
I love it, man. John, it's been a pleasure, sir.
Rob, awesome talking to you, man. Dude, it's great to reconnect with you. And I appreciate you having me on, man. This is so much fun.
All the best with EDBH, man. I look forward to see where it goes next.
Thanks, brother. You too. See you, Rob. See you, buddy.
Thanks so much to my friend John Allan Miller for joining me on today's Straight to Video podcast to spread all the good vibes and Nashville love, which I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to head on over to edbh.co where you can learn all about the Eat, Drink, Be Happy brand which John has created, and find his music wherever you listen to songs these days. Tell him we sent you. This and over 230 episodes of the podcast are available to listen to for free over at stvpod.com, and there's also lots happening at our 80s video shop in Alfreton, Derbyshire. Chris and I have just wrapped up season 1 of our series What's in the Egg, Rob, where we chat about some of the films in the shop, and we've just penciled in some dates for events later this year. So please find at 80s video shop on all the social media pages, or just head on over to www.80svideoshop.co.uk to keep up to date. That's all for today's show. Thanks for listening, and remember to always be kind. Please rewind and unwind, and I'll speak to you all real soon.